You're listening to Major Motion Problems, a podcast that explores the best and worst movies of all time to find out if they deserve their Oscar glory or Razzie infamy. I'm Kris.
And I'm James. Every episode, we pick a year at random and watch the Academy Award winner for Best Picture, along with that year's Golden Raspberry loser for Worst Picture.
We will discuss, debate, and determine if the movie world was right in honoring or dishonoring these films.
This episode, we're in 1996, where Best Picture went to, you guessed it, yet another passionate but doomed romance set against the backdrop of a world at war. Anthony Minghella's The English Patient.
While the Razzies went after Andrew Bergman's raunch-filled comedy, Striptease. And in case you didn't hear the heavy quotation marks I put on the word comedy, just pretend I said, awful bland waste of time.
Oh, coming out hot. Oh my.
Striptease, I don't know, I don't have the words to express how much I disliked this awful piece of garbage. It is a waste of time. It is a waste of money. It doesn't make any sense. But before we do that, I'd like to make a little bit of this intro about you because our listeners may not know this, but not only do you talk about movies, but you write for TV. And you wrote the really amazing, funny, puppet-filled musical episode of Knuckles on Paramount Plus, which is, I'm biased, but it was my favorite episode of that amazing season. It was really incredible. But you also have 2 episodes of Wednesday that just premiered because you were a staff writer on season 2.
Yay!
And man, if I could go back in time and say to myself, your best friend, you know, when you're an adult, will be a writer for Tim Burton, I think my head would just like explode. Because I've loved, it's weird because I've loved Tim Burton all my life and I've loved the Addams Family all my life. And if there's like one thing from the Barry Sonnenfeld Addams Family movies that like I wanted more of, it's like that scene in the first movie when they go down into the family vault and you get these little glimpses of Addams Family lore, like what was Gomez like as a kid? How was his relationship with Fester? And like basically this entire show is like Addams Family lore and like getting into the characters. And I don't want to reveal the finale that you have a writing credit on, but there is a major Addams Family character that you learn the origin story of. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, why is no other Addams Family property like messed around with this idea before?
It is interesting. That's what the creators of the show, Al Gough and Miles Miller, that was their big idea for season 2. And when The Room came together in 2023 and we just sort of broke it over the course of that year, which was interrupted briefly by the writer's strike, you know, stuff came and went and came back again and then went again. But the big reveal that you're talking about, that was the thing we were always driving at. And I mean, yeah, it's what you said. How had that not been explored before in any of the movies, any of the animated spin-offs that came out recently? Perhaps in one of the television shows or one of those direct-to-DVD Addams Family things. I don't know. I haven't seen all of them. Maybe there's an allusion to what you're talking about. But yeah, no, this is, I think, the first one to really run with that idea.
It's great. And after we're off microphone, I want to go through like all the jokes that I laughed at in the 2 episodes they have a credit on to find out like if you came up, because some of them felt like James jokes. I don't want to give too much away, but Wednesday has a very funny line where she's observing something and she says like, I haven't seen a mother-son relationship like this since Psycho. And it just cuts away. Like it has the exact humor from the Barry Sonnenfeld movies, but it's like full of action. Man, congratulations. It's really wonderful and amazing.
That means a lot to me, Kris. Thank you. Yeah, it's to anyone who's interested in pursuing a career in Hollywood, you stick around long enough, you never know who you're going to work with or, what projects you're going to be associated with. And truly my presence on this very cool show, which I'm very thankful for that whole experience, it's just because I stuck around. So
well, I know what you're saying, and just let me finish up this little congratulatory bit by saying I kind of agree, but also you have to be a kind person, and you have to be talented, and you have to be skilled, and you have to be hardworking. It's not just about sticking around. Look, we're not going to get into this, but some people do stick around, but they lose the ability to be kind or open or, accept new ideas. I think you have something that many writers don't have, which is not only talent and skill, but like I said in an earlier episode, you are the most thoughtful, creative collaborator I've ever worked with. We could explore tangents in stories and just like explore them, make sure they work or don't work, come back to the story. Like you are a truly talented writer, and it's not just sticking around. You are a special guy and a great writer.
Thanks, Kris. That really means a lot to me, and I didn't know we were going to start here. So I'm collecting myself. But
well, let's collect yourself. But as you're collecting yourself, let's go on to something a little bit sadder. Do you want to take us away into the sadder?
Yes. No. This we did actually plan on talking about. At the taping of this episode earlier this week, we lost major motion pal Robert Redford. Listeners of our podcast who have only seen the movies that we've watched so far. Wouldn't that be funny if there was someone out there who just like, I never got around to watching any movies. Maybe I'll just start with all the best pictures and worst pictures based on this podcast. Yeah.
It's weird. It is like the best and worst, but like all the lists that we're making on this podcast are so weird. Platoon and Howard the Duck. This episode, Striptease and the English Patient. Like
I love it. No, Kris, I want to be 100% clear. If you have to bury me or like send me off to a desert island, I only want to take the movies we've watched on this podcast. I love how insane all the pairings are. And yeah, anyway, let's get back to Mr. Redford. Listeners, remember, he is the star of Out of Africa. And we will see him again, actually, but behind the camera as a director when we cover Ordinary People, which I believe is 1980 and is the first year of the Razzies. Ordinary People won Best Picture. I forget what the first Razzie Worst Picture was. But anyway, I love Robert Redford. And I know that I was not a fan of Out of Africa, but I love him as an actor. I love him as a director. I love him as a supporter of independent film. He's the founder of the Sundance Film Festival, and every obituary I've read for him this week makes sure to point out that how involved he was, like up until like I think he stepped away, not too long ago. So he right down to the way it was promoted, and like he didn't like how Hollywood it was becoming and how corporatized it was becoming. Like it was independent spirit is what he was chasing, and so many filmmakers got their start there, and so many just incredible creative storytellers that we love probably would not have had the platform or success that they had if it wasn't for the Sundance Film Festival and, by extension, Robert Redford.
You're right. You're absolutely right. It's not just a film festival. I don't think... maybe a lot of people know this, but it's also a creative lab for directors and writers to, develop work. I can't think of what movie it was, but I think one movie that we talked about recently was developed as a short film at Sundance first. I forgot which one, but that's the origin of a lot of movies. You're absolutely right. He fostered so much original creativity, and even what was the Captain America movie?
He's great. It's my favorite Marvel movie, The Winter Soldier, where he, it's his presence immediately makes you think, oh, All the President's Men, 70s paranoid conspiracy thriller, and that was the Marvel formula working so well. Like a completely approachable, accessible movie with just a little bit of style, and he's great in that, and obviously it's not his best performance. Probably... What's my favorite Robert Redford performance? Oh, Butch Cassidy, obviously. Jeremiah Johnson, he's great in that. I loved All Is Lost. That's the J.C. Chandor movie that it's just him on a boat. Very little dialogue. That's from 2013.
Wow.
Yeah. So now a little bit of a segue. As a director... Robert Redford got one of the best performances out of this episode's star in the movie Quiz Show. That's from the mid-90s. I believe it was nominated for Best Picture, and he was up for Best Director again. Love Quiz Show. Highly recommend. The star of Quiz Show, though, is Ralph Fiennes, who, of course, is the star of our Best Picture for this episode, The English Patient. Are you ready to discuss The English Patient, Kris?
I sure am.
Hello? Where am I?
You're in the Major Motion Problems studio, James. It's just me and you.
But I'm in excruciating pain, and I can barely speak.
Well, that's because you've recorded 15 episodes of our podcast. It's taken a toll on your body and mind.
Yes, my mind. I can't remember. I can't remember anything. I have amnesia.
Oh no, I guess I have no choice but to nurse you back to health while helping you piece together memories of a doomed love affair, all while embarking on a whirlwind romance of my own.
I'm good. Let me just tell you about the English Patient instead.
Fine.
Thank you, Kris.
They found him in the desert, a man with no name and no country, a man they called the English Patient. Now, to unlock the mystery of his past, they must uncover the truth that will set him free.
Now, normally I like to save my opinion about my assigned film until later in the intro, but I can't think of another way to start our discussion on The English Patient without laying all my cards on the table. I think I should really, really like, if not love, this movie. I think it looks amazing, the acting is superb, and I enjoyed the 3-ish hours I spent getting lost in its dreamlike world. It has action, passion, tragedy, characters driven to make impossible choices, all stuff I love. I think the issue for me, though, is in the writing. Not the beautiful dialogue or engrossing and surprising plot, but the way the story is told.
Michael Ondaatje's Booker Prize-winning novel, The English Patient, won critical acclaim and a very intensely loyal following. Among them, director Anthony Minghella. This was a story he had to bring to film. It has been released and is winning rave reviews. New Yorker film critic Anthony Lane called The English Patient awfully close to a masterpiece.
But we'll get to my mixed feelings soon enough. First, a little backstory. The English Patient bears the fingerprints of several auteurs and master craftsmen. The movie is based on author Michael Ondaatje's beloved 1992 novel, and it was adapted into a screenplay by its director, British multi-hyphenate Anthony Minghella. Like the best English dramatist, Minghella built his career across all mediums, winning acclaim for his stagings of Samuel Beckett plays, his TV work at the BBC, and a few indie films that caught the attention of Hollywood. Literary adaptation specialist producer Saul Zaentz, past credits include One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Amadeus, The Unbearable Lightness of Being, and the ownership of the Creedence Clearwater Revival catalog, ask me about that later, wanted to work with Minghella and helped him secure the rights to the book. A friendship blossomed between Minghella and Ondaatje as he worked on the script, the latter offering guidance to the former to ensure that the major themes and key images of the book were successfully translated to the screen.
Now that you've written it, what's it about?
It becomes a kind of crucible of many love stories set in a time of war. One of the things Anthony has done with the film is emphasize that love, which is not just a male-female love, but the love of friends and the dangers of love of country. So I think that has certainly stayed there.
Was there any kind of collaboration here?
Oh, constant collaboration. There's many advantages of being a writer-director in a film. You can direct from the first day of writing, and you can write at the last day of directing. I was still writing up until the last minute. The disadvantage is that, normally there's a very interesting and healthy friction between the writer of the screenplay and the director, and in that tension, often you can generate wonderful things. And what I managed to do was to persuade Michael to come in and, in a way, sit between the screenplay and me as a filmmaker, and with Saul there as well, Saul Zaentz, the producer, and that generated the friction which made the film better, I think.
I'm sure most of you were able to discern the layered, complex plot of the movie from Kris and mine's little intro, but just in case you're unclear, here's the gist. As World War II moves into its latter days, a British biplane carrying a man and a woman, Ralph Fiennes and Kristen Scott Thomas, is shot down in North Africa. Only the man survives, but he's horribly disfigured and claims to have lost his memory. The only clue to his past is an annotated copy of Herodotus's The Histories, the margins of the text filled with personal notes and remembrances. He's left in the care of Hannah, a Canadian nurse played by Juliette Binoche, who thinks she's cursed, as she's just lost her boyfriend and best friend to German troops and their landmines. They hole up in a bombed-out monastery in northern Italy, awaiting help or to meet the inevitable, whichever comes first. During this time, Hannah tries to jog her patient's memory by reading passages from Herodotus, and we flash back to the beginning of the war, where the so-called English patient is revealed to be Hungarian cartographer Laszlo Amalzi. He's mapping areas of the Sahara Desert for the Royal Geographical Society, which includes aerialist husband and wife team Geoffrey and Catherine Clifton. Geoffrey is played by major motion pal Colin Firth, thankfully without his Shakespeare in Love earring. And Catherine is, Kristen Scott Thomas, the woman from the airplane. You see where this is going? The attraction between full hairline Rafe and ageless Kristen starts almost immediately, is delayed by desert discoveries and sandstorms, until finally they can't take it anymore and crumble to their desires. The longing is worth every frame, and even though we feel bad for good guy Colin Firth, who is revealed to be a British intelligence agent working for the Allied forces, we want these two to be together.
I can't work. Can't sleep.
I can't sleep. I woke up shouting in the middle of the night. Jeffrey thinks it's the thing in the desert. The trauma.
I can still taste you. I'm trying to write with your taste in my mouth. Swoon. I'll catch you.
But, as we learn in the present, their love is doomed. I wouldn't normally say spoiler alert, but this is a good story to see unfold the way the filmmaker intends. So if you're interested, stop listening now. Hannah and Amalzi are visited by Caravaggio, standard excellent Willem Dafoe, a mysterious soldier who claims that the English patient is faking his amnesia and is responsible for the loss of Caravaggio's thumbs. According to Willem Dafoe, when the shit hit the fan and the Axis powers began to invade North Africa, Amalzi revealed the identities of intelligence officers and even provided them with detailed maps of the desert. But we soon learn the truth is more complicated and involves Jeffrey learning of Amalzi and Catherine's affair and trying to kill them both by crashing his plane. Amalzi is forced to leave a mortally wounded Catherine in a desert cave while he treks 3 days across the desert for help. Amalzi does reach Allied forces, but without any identification and his suspicious non-British name, he's instead arrested and sent away on a train. Amalzi kills an Allied guard to escape, trades maps to the Germans for a plane, and returns to the cave to find that his beloved Catherine has died, but left him a goodbye letter in the pages of Herodotus. Amalzi loads her body into the plane and takes off, flying the route where we met him at the beginning of the movie.
Why did you hate me?
What?
Don't you know you drove everybody mad?
Shh. Don't talk.
You speak so many bloody languages and you never want to talk.
There's also a major subplot involving Hannah and Kip, an Indian lieutenant who sets up camp outside the monastery as he clears the region of landmines and bombs. Their love is equally engrossing, and while Hannah's curse does not take Kip's life, it does come close. It's a great counterpoint to the central romance, but it's another intense relationship to keep track of, which leads me to my difficulties with this film. It's edited by Walter Murch, he of The Conversation and Apocalypse Now fame, and the process of figuring out how to structure this epic story in a compelling manner was so creatively challenging and ultimately rewarding, Ondaatje published a book of their conversations on the subject. I'm currently reading Murch's latest book that was published in 2024, Something Suddenly Clicked, and to offer a much too simple summary of his editing technique, I think it boils down to discovering each film's individual language. The English Patient is told through jumps in time, characters questioning each other for the truth, and reflections on what's been won and lost. The editing pattern Murch chose relies on fades, silent reactions to big moments, and long takes that allow reality to dissolve into a dream space, only to be interrupted by violence. I wouldn't say the story has elements of magical realism, but the filmmaking certainly does.
I think that each shot is like the branch of a tree, and the branch will grow, and at a certain point that is determined by the DNA of the tree and the conditions under which it's growing, the tree will say, now I'm going to put out another branch. I will create a knot, a node here, and I will branch. And in that sense, every film is a tree that grows, that I think has to have its authentic branching points that are organically true to its DNA and to the circumstances under which it is growing.
However, what the film doesn't have is a ticking clock. And to be clear, I'm not saying it needs one. In fact, I would hate it if there was a studio-directed subplot about one last Nazi squad closing in on the monastery as Hannah desperately tries to learn the truth of Amalzi's identity before it's too late. But I do notice that very little actually prompts the flashbacks, especially when Caravaggio enters the movie. He knows who Amalzi is, or at least thinks he does, but if he's so hell-bent on revenge, why does he spend what feels like weeks waiting for him to confess? The film has so many beautiful sequences that seamlessly flow into each other, but there's something about the framing story that just doesn't quite connect for me. I haven't read the original book, but I can see how this approach could work there, where the reader is hearing the character voices in their own head and can make the passage of time make sense. I could also see it working on stage or even broken up over a few episodes of television, so basically every other format Minghella had worked in. But I know I'm being nitpicky. The English Patient won Best Picture, Best Director for Minghella, Best Supporting Actress for Juliette Binoche, and Best Editing for Murch, along with many other technical awards. I don't think I'll revisit this movie again, but it's a good one, and it brought together Minghella, Murch, and cinematographer John Seals, who would go on to collaborate on 2 more literary adaptations, The Talented Mr. Ripley and Cold Mountain, both of which I love. To close, as I alluded to at the beginning of this episode, we've covered a couple of love stories set against world wars, and I'm on the record of not being a huge fan of previous Best Picture winner Out of Africa. I was not going to mention it or even compare the 2 movies, but then I found Ondaatje's obituary for Minghella, who passed much too soon in 2008. He writes after the chaos of the Academy Awards ceremony, Minghella pulled him aside and said, "Look what I have in my pocket." He pulled from his tuxedo a giant horseshoe that had been given to him by Sidney Pollack, director of Out of Africa. Pollack, who was a great mentor for Anthony during and after the filming of The English Patient, had lugged the same horseshoe to the Oscars when he won for Out of Africa. The torch had been passed.
That is fascinating. Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Like, I truly was like, okay, don't talk about Out of Africa. Don't talk about Out of Africa. You don't need to talk about Out of Africa. And then I read that, and I'm like, well, okay.
Guess I have to.
It's a direct connection. What'd you think of The English Patient, Kris?
Wow. I'm starting to see a pattern with these historical movies. Like, you didn't like Out of Africa that much. I kind of liked it. Sounds like you didn't have the patience for The English Patient, but I love this movie. I was sobbing at the end.
Aww.
I can't believe how much I love this movie and how involved I am in this movie. I have a giant document full of notes of everything I loved. So many things. All the Irving.
There's so much to talk about in this movie, and I do really, really like this movie. I really, really do. But I have to admit, there's just something about this framing story that throws me off a little bit. But let's start with the positives, and you kick it off for us.
Well, can I start with the framing device?
Sure. Yeah.
In college, we had a really great professor who basically had a whole lesson on framing devices, which sounds kind of strange to dedicate an entire lesson to that, but it is. If you embrace a framing device and you don't make it corny or over the top or super obvious, it can kind of take the place of a ticking clock if you're going backwards and forwards in time, because so many times in this movie I was reminded, oh right, the road is still blocked in Italy with all the landmines from the Axis powers, and so that's why they're all waiting in the monastery, and everything is just sort of on hold. I thought that was really smart and clever.
I love the setup of being stuck in the monastery, and you're if we were gonna pick. There's multiple main characters in this, but from Juliette Binoche's point of view, so Hannah, the nurse, she has nothing to do but take care of this guy. So what else is she going to do but learn his history? That's fine. That all makes sense. And there's a relationship that forms between them that is quite moving and touching. My issue is that when Willem Dafoe enters the picture, he comes in hot. He comes in we don't know what to think of him. He steals some of the morphine that they're using to, sedate Ralph Fiennes' pain, and he is there to confirm what he thinks he knows, that this man, the anonymous English patient, is actually this guy Amalzi, who is responsible for him being tortured and the death of some of his friends in the intelligence. And it's if a man is that hell-bent on revenge, there's nothing keeping him from killing this guy or getting right into it. I don't know, the passage of time it's a little strange in this movie, and it threw me off towards the end when the plot was getting really, really, really good. This is one of the best third acts that we've looked at in a long time.
Yeah.
There's just something about it that, I don't know, I feel like if we were in college, someone would play Logic Police, unfortunately, and I don't think they would be completely wrong. You have a character who is so certain of what they're doing, and he doesn't act on those actions, and he doesn't really have a good reason not to. So that's my that's my thing, and I'm not saying it ruined the movie. Everyone should see this movie. It really is a feat of filmmaking, but it is interesting how that just struck me as something that, like, I know how that idea can work in a book. I can see it on stage too, but there's just something about film that, like, the story didn't 100% translate for me there.
What you're mentioning with Willem Dafoe and how he kind of gets muddled and lost as he's on his mission to discover the identity of Ralph Fiennes. I understand what you're saying. However, do you think he gets a little bit of a pass because he is addicted to morphine and sort of like everyone in this world is sort of like falling apart and complicated because of the war? And so he's like, he would probably be more clear-headed if he hadn't gone through, you know, all those awful scenes you see like 3/4 of the way through the movie where the Axis powers are raiding, you know, his offices. And I kind of understood it.
It's a good point. I don't know if he would have been, like, the characterization of him is like, he's so chatty, you know, he's always talking to Hannah. He's like, you know, he enmeshes himself with Kip and his men too. Like, he just doesn't come off as like a brooding stranger, like waiting for his moment to find things out. Like, I don't know. There's just like, we'll talk a little bit more about the editing in a sec, but like, I agree that he gets lost a little bit, and I think it's fine. I think it works. Obviously, it worked for everyone else, and I don't even want to say I forgive the movie of this approach, because what is there to forgive? Everything is done so well and with such intelligence, you know, both logically and emotionally. But that is my reaction. I can't lie about that.
That's fine. Moving on from Willem Dafoe, can I mention my favorite character in the whole movie?
Please.
My favorite character is Kip the bomb diffuser. I love him. He is very subtle. It's not a giant performance, but Kip is a Sikh man who is working with the Allied powers. And so as soon as they come across the mines at the beginning of the movie in the road, he's like the first one to, you know, start working on it. And he's also the one who warns Hannah that the Axis powers are really keen on planting bombs in pianos because they know that people, you go to them and start playing and messing around, then it'll blow up. He also, you know, kind of has a relationship, an affair with Hannah. I loved him. He was great.
He's a great character. In the original book, so a little bit more about Michael Ondaatje's book. It's actually a sequel to an earlier novel that he wrote. It has some of the same characters and sort of continues stories. I believe those characters are Hannah and Caravaggio. Now, I haven't read either book. I read a summary of The English Patient. I think Kip plays an even bigger role in the book. And his romance with Hannah is tested by his race and, you know, Hannah being Canadian and him being Sikh, as you said. There's some questions of, there seems to be a little bit more social commentary and race-based issues that the movie does not do as much with, or saves a lot of that with Amalzi in his Hungarian background, of all things. So it's interesting that you shined to Kip, because I liked him a lot too. It's a great performance, and that scene where he's down in the water with that giant bomb, and the Allied forces are celebrating.
Oh my gosh!
And they're rolling forward in tanks, and like the ground is vibrating, and he has to cut a wire, and like, you know, we don't know if it's gonna blow up or not, and there's another one of Hannah's true loves gonna die. I mean, great stuff. Great stuff.
I so identified with Kip in that moment. I can't think of any like specific examples from my life, but I think we've all been Kip at one point with our little pliers, like trying to defuse the bomb, and you just hear this rumbling of like Americans, and you're just like, oh, shut up, just shut up. I'm trying to work on this. We're all gonna die if you don't shut up.
Any time at college where, I'm not saying that we didn't go out all night and like scream and make fools of ourselves, but some nights, you know, you're in and you're working on something, you're writing, or editing something, you're trying to make something, and outside you just hear, woo! You know?
Do you remember in the quad when we were coming out of Crossroads, just, you know, we were just wicked partying, and Kip the bomb diffuser was nearby, just like, and he lost his pliers, and we felt so bad after but the bomb didn't go off. The bomb didn't go off,
and you offered him a Four Loko after that, which was really kind of you, and he just sort of took it in shock and chugged the whole thing in front of us. We never saw Kip after that. I hope he's okay. Did you know that Ralph Fiennes' character, Laszlo Amalzi, he's a real person?
Whoa, really?
Now, hold on, though. The romance, I'm pretty sure, none of that's real. He was a Hungarian adventurer, cartographer who was responsible for a lot of mapping of the Sahara Desert. I don't know if he discovered the cave of swimmers that is, featured in this movie. That's a real place. I don't know if he discovered it specifically, but he was in that region. Now, he did end up being a Nazi sympathizer, it seems. Like, he did provide them maps and information that I think Erwin Rommel would end up using and allow the Desert Fox to conduct his campaign there. The English Patient, paints him as, a more literary character in that he has this incredible emotional conflict. He's not directly responsible for the death of Colin Firth, but obviously his affair drives Colin Firth to make that choice. The more interesting subplot on top of that is that his best friend, Maddox, who is out in the desert with them, he hears that because Maddox receives word that they think that Ray Fiennes is a traitor, he takes his own life. And that's something that information Caravaggio delivers to Amalzi in the present. And that's what finally prompts him to tell the full story of what happened. Yes, he did provide information to the Germans. It was only after the Allies, accused him of being a spy. And it's such a great complication. But to be clear, Amalzi is a real person, but all that stuff did not happen. And the movie did bring a lot of more, interest in the historical character of Amalzi, but also confuses a lot of people who think that this is more accurate to history than it really is.
Wow, that is fascinating. Yeah, because if you take the romance out of it, then he's just kind of a scumbag. Like, he's just kind of he's just a Axis guy. Because the romance is the whole balancing act. Like, he's doing it because he's so in love with this woman. And I don't know. That's interesting. That's very interesting. I'd like to.
I give it a pass. By the way, like I don't think this movie lionizes the character. I think it's a clever way of writing. Like, right. This was a minor person in the grand scheme of things, and it just grounds it sort of. And to talk about the title, he's called the English Patient because when he's shot down, he's wearing a British uniform. So no one knows, and he's so badly burnt and disfigured by the crash that no one knows like where he's from. So they just call him the English Patient, which is funny because he's Hungarian. And ultimately, when he does do that 3-day trek and he's singing all your favorite Irving Berlin songs to, stay sane, the Allied forces, they accuse him of being a spy because he has no papers. He has a funny name that they don't recognize. And that's why that ultimately leads to his downfall and his ultimate breaking point.
You know what was on the top of my mind during this whole thing? Inchon. And I just
no.
I want to go out and find all the jokers who made Inchon. Hopefully some of them are still alive. I want to gather them all up, plop them down in my living room, put on the English Patient, point to the TV, and say, "This is how you make a period war movie. Do you see this? Do you see the subtle differences between the late 1930s and the 1940s? You see how they're not dressed like they look like they're from 1996 and they have no fear shirts on? Do you see that? Do you see how important production? Do you hear the Irving Berlin songs? This is how you make a war movie. It's compelling and it sticks to the period. You jokers, you Inchon jokers. I do not care for your film."
The Inchon Jokers has entered the Major Motion Problems lexicon along with Sidney Pollack, not quite an auteur, more than a journeyman.
Can I introduce maybe a lesser quote, but it's my favorite line from the movie when Willem Dafoe says, "Back when I had thumbs and you had a face." I love it. I know.
I watched the movie with Isabel. Should we just assume that I watch every Best Picture with Isabel? But anyway, I watched this with Isabel, and a couple of times she turned to me and was like, "Oh, it's like Casablanca," and it is like Casablanca, but the romance is even more just, I don't want to say torrid, but just so emotional, and it's. I don't know. It's like it really is a movie of attraction because Colin Firth, he is not a bad guy. Like he's just sort of he's a bit of a doofus, and that's how the movie paints him when we first meet him. And of course, you have to go to the slightly more rugged Ralph Fiennes, of course, Catherine's going to be attracted to him. But then we find out that Jeffrey Rush is not a doofus. He's actually providing, vital information to the Allies, and that's why he's flying his plane. Like, you feel as an audience like, oh man, this is so much more complicated. And there's so many great sequences in this movie, just to name a few. The sandstorm, where they get trapped in the car. The discovery of the Cave of Swimmers. One of my favorite sequences in the movie, and it's quieter, and it's something that I think was found in the editing room. Colin Firth sitting in his car just outside the building where he knows Catherine is having the affair. And it's he just sits there, and the heartbreak on his face. He doesn't know what to do. This is the woman that he brags like, I was the best friend that she cried to. All these romances that she chased, all these men who chased her. I was, her ear until finally I got to marry her. Yeah, he's proud of the fact that, nice guys ultimately win in the end. But now he's learning that no, nice guys don't ultimately win in the end. So just, it's good. I mean, this is... The source material, it sounds like a beautiful book, and the characters and the characterization and every little viewpoint and like part of the war is just so well realized. And it's the kind of thing that I think books do really well, and they can fuel movies like this, because in other, let's say that this was started as a screenplay first. You're probably going to cut some corners. You're probably going to cut some backstory. You're just not going to have, the characters aren't going to be as fully realized as they are here. And even, I'm assuming there's material that did not make it into the movie, you feel that every one of these characters has a history and backstory that is worth exploring.
Yeah. Again, kept the bomb diffuser. I mean, I assume there's I kind of like to read that other book you mentioned about him and the other conflicts that him and Hannah go through. My favorite, again, one of my favorite moments in the movie had to do with him when they're in the monastery and he brings in Hannah to see the paintings, and he lifts her up on the rope and he ignites ignites a flare.
Yeah.
And he's just he's swinging her back and forth. I love that scene a lot, but also this movie kind of primes you in a way that's it's the 1940s, all these people are at war, and an accident could happen at any moment. Remember when the car falls off the dune just because he reached up and didn't pay attention for 2 seconds?
Yeah.
I was so worried that scene was going to be so much fun. Oh, tragedy, Hannah falls. And, I was, every time something in this movie where the characters were just being silly and goofy, I'm like, oh no, is someone going to get into a horrible accident?
And to speak about that moment in particular, so it comes out of nowhere in a good way. It's just this is the environment that we're in. Cars are going to flip. They recover from it pretty easily, and they come up with a plan to make sure everyone's okay. The moment before that, though, is there's another member of the crew. It's not Maddox. I believe it's an older member of the crew, and he has a male lover that he only sees when they go out in the desert to, do their map-making stuff. And he tells Ralph Fiennes essentially what happens in the desert stays in the desert. And the point of that is basically saying, if you want to pursue Catherine, go pursue Catherine. And then, of course, Colin Firth is the one that says, I'll take him back to civilization. Catherine, you stay with Amalzi. It'll be fine. I trust you. And to their credit, they only get buried in a sandstorm, buried almost alive in their car after another sandstorm, and they do not consummate their relationship there.
No.
But it does bring them closer together.
Dude, that one scene when Colin Firth is going to his plane, I'm like, I'll be back in a couple days, and Ralph Fiennes, he basically looks like his role as Lord Voldemort. You sure that's a good idea to leave her here in all this dangerous it's are you not reading the situation, Colin Firth? He's clearly up to something sneaky.
Well, Colin Firth had bigger things to worry about, mainly the World War. So speaking of this information and Amalzi's role in it, let's talk a little bit about the ending, because this is something I read in Something Suddenly Clicked. That's Walter Murch's book. So if the final confession, when the information all finally comes out of Amalzi and what he did in those final days and why he was in that plane in the beginning with Catherine's dead body, all of that is told to Caravaggio, but we occasionally cut to Hannah listening to them. you'll notice she's not in the room with them. She is overhearing this conversation. And this happens a couple of times in the movie. And those moments are scripted. There are characters who are doing one thing and then overhearing a conversation elsewhere, which normally is like a dramatic no-no unless you know how to do it really well, which this movie does. This idea that Hannah is overhearing this conversation is not in the book or in the script. It's something that Walter Murch created from an outtake of another scene that didn't end up in the movie of Hannah and Kip talking about their relationship. So that distressed look that she has on her face, that's not actually Juliette Binoche reacting to this information. And the reason why they included this and like cut the sequence this way to show that she knows this information is, all right, biggest spoiler alert of all, Amalzi does not make it at the end of this movie. He has an assisted suicide, essentially, with Hannah's help, who gives him, he points to the morphine vials and then points to another, and then another, and then another, silently saying, I've said everything I need to say. It's time for me to go. I'm in too much pain. Test audiences were confused why I don't even know if it was test audiences. It might have been just Minghella and Murch. They don't think that Hannah making the decision to help Amalzi end his life was earned or justified. And they figured out, oh, she needs to hear all of this. And like she needs to be a part of the closure moment, except it wasn't filmed with her as part of the closure moment before that. So that little bit of masterful editing was completely found in the editing room, and I'm guessing that moment worked for you, right? Like you didn't think that was like a stolen shot from somewhere else, right?
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, that didn't even occur to me, because you're right. Because if Hannah was helping him, Ralph Fiennes, take his own life at the end of the movie, I guess she would only be assuming, if she didn't know his real history, that he's in so much pain. But it's like, you wouldn't, you're right. She needs to know that he is not just in pain, but in emotional pain. Like he can't hold this in anymore. She needs to know that he's holding so much guilt, and that's why he needs to end his life. You're right. Wow, that's interesting.
That's the stuff that Walter Murch in all of his books. I mean, The Conversation is a movie that was found pretty much exclusively in the editing room. Like they didn't shoot half of Coppola's script because they ran out of time and money. Wow. So yeah, it's he's a genius. A lot of geniuses on this movie. Here's a genius that was on this. Here is someone who is not a genius, who, for better or for worse, was on this movie. Harvey Weinstein. This is a Miramax. Here's all I'm going to say about him. So Weinstein is known for taking movies that he produces away from the filmmakers and taking them to Connecticut to a private editing suite and cutting them shorter, basically, because that's, this is not an I don't want to say he's not an artistic man, but okay, this is, let's just call him a brutish gorilla, because that's what he is. But, shorter's better, shorter gets the money. He tried to take the movie from Minghella and Murch. He took it to Connecticut, The English Patient, and ultimately he called them back and said, yeah, I don't know, this movie's too complicated. I can't cut it shorter and still have it make sense. He did try this again on The Talented Mr. Ripley, failed. Cold Mountain, he actually did get a shorter cut together, and that's what led to a falling out between Minghella and Weinstein. And ultimately, they, how much acclaim does your creative team have to get for you to just trust them? It's so crazy. Anyway, so yeah, that's the Miramax mention. And then, do you have anything else you want to say about the film? And if not, I'll give us some funny sort of backstory to end things.
Can I give you my one punch-up joke? Because you know me, I'm all about the comedy. I'm all about the yucks.
This movie. Okay, let's be clear. This movie definitely needed a comedy pass. It needed a comedy pass. It needed at least 3 round tables with some of the best comedy minds of today. Nate Bargatze.
Oh my gosh, that would be so funny.
We love you, Nate. We love you. I'm just picking a name at random. All right, go ahead.
We brought in Shane Willis to do a pass on
Shane Gillis. We brought in Shane Gillis to do punch up on Kip.
So here's my punch up joke to get the movie started on a bang. literally. So you remember when Hannah's friend is driving past her in the Jeep, and Hannah's
God, where is this going? Jesus
Hold on.
Christ.
This is very funny. This is very funny. So Hannah's friend is passing her in the Jeep, and Hannah's friend calls out like, "Hey, I'm going into town. I need some money." And Hannah's like, "No. Okay, here's your money." And then the Jeep tears off past this convoy, goes down the road, and then blows up. So my punch-up line is Hannah shouts, "No, she owed me money!"
Well done, Chris. Well done. Okay. You notice that I mentioned Creedence Clearwater Revival. Technically Major Motion Pals because their music is so heavily featured in Forrest Gump, I might add.
Yep.
Producer of the film, Saul Zaentz, is known for literary adaptations. Before he got into movie producing, though, he was in the music industry, and he is best known to classic rock guys as the one who owned basically the Creedence Clearwater Revival publishing, and just like any money that could come from the catalog went to him. And
Wow.
John Fogerty, the frontman of Creedence Clearwater Revival, hated him so much that he wrote a song on his solo album Centerfield called Zaentz Can't Dance, which then made Saul Zaentz sue Fogerty
Wow.
for defamation. More famous is the lawsuit, though, that Zaentz brought against Fogerty, where he accused Fogerty of plagiarizing himself, like writing a song that sounded too similar to a song that he had written before. So these two hate each other. However, all that Creedence Clearwater Revival money, obviously it's, a highly profitable songbook for many years. That led him to being able to get into movie making. And he was a, voracious reader, and he just really wanted to make big, important movies. And other movies, like I mentioned, Cuckoo's Nest, Amadeus, The Unbearable Lightness of Being, the animated Lord of the Rings movie, the Ralph Bakshi one.
Wow, really?
That's him. He's the original rights holder of Lord of the Rings. He's the one that commissioned the John Boorman version that the Beatles were going to be in. That's a whole other podcast we can do.
Wow.
So anyway, interesting guy, obviously a smart guy, and unlike Weinstein, was committed to telling the story the way it should be told. But I couldn't mention Zaentz without mentioning Zaentz Can't Dance.
That's fascinating. Film podcasts, they cover writers and directors all the time. Maybe in the future I'll pitch to you, we could do like an episode on a producer. Maybe there's like a really interesting producer out there we could cover, because
he might be one of them. He has like a lifetime achievement award from the Oscars for his career, because it's pretty stacked with big important movies.
That's wow. But the next time I run into a Swiftie and they tell me all about the recording conflict and Taylor's version, I'm gonna say, wait, no. Let me tell you about the Creedence Clearwater Revival. I don't know.
CCR, Chris. CCR.
Let me tell you about the CCR thing with the recording rights and all this music that I don't listen to or care about.
Man, you just mentioned the Swifties, which means no one is they're gonna review bomb our podcast and destroy us.
Yeah, actually, I'm seriously gonna cut that out. I didn't think about that. So anyway.
Your Honor, my ex-husband is a thief. That hardly qualifies him to raise a 7-year-old child.
Neither does being a mother without a job.
My lawyer told me this appeal is going to cost me $20,000. I mean, is there a shot in hell that I can make that in 6 weeks?
Erin Grant is desperate. And desperate times call for desperate measures.
Before we get to the Razzie portion of this episode, I'd like to bring up a universal childhood experience that I'm pretty sure we all had as kids. So, you remember when we were all young and enamored with the glossy yet intellectual satire of Paul Verhoeven? For each and every one of us, there was a night when we were driving home with our mom and dad from the world's most boring family reunion, only to look out at the passing multiplex with its giant electric sign. Now playing Showgirls, directed by Paul Verhoeven. That's when we would desperately call out to our parents in the front seat, oh please, can we go see Mr. Verhoeven's searing take on American sleaze and capitalism? But every time, we would get the same answer in return. No, we have a perfectly good movie about a strong female exotic dancer co-starring Rena Riffle and also a comic relief monkey at home. Of course, after we did get home, it was always the same disappointment. Wait a minute. This isn't the 1995 erotic drama Showgirls. This is the 1996 erotic comedy Striptease starring Demi Moore.
Castle Rock Entertainment presents a story about the bodies that move.
He'd jump you in a second, that piece of shit.
And the ones that don't. Demi Moore.
I'm Malcolm Madejski, Congressman Dilbeck's right hand.
You must be a very busy man.
Striptease.
You're Mrs. Grant?
No, I'm Barbara Bush.
Who is he?
George Bush.
If it isn't clear at this point, I have almost nothing positive to say about the 1996 movie Striptease. It's a Disney Channel original movie for adults, and it isn't worth your time. Before I get into the production history, the story, and the director of Striptease, I would like to share the one single moment in this movie that I found funny. Without overloading you with context, it's a scene in a video rental store in which Ving Rhames storms in, marches up to the clerk, and says,
"Free Willy back yet?
Still out.
People are pigs."
There you go. Now that you've experienced that one kind of amusing moment, you never have to see Striptease, unless for some reason you enjoy the less ambitious movies in Demi Moore's diverse filmography. Even though this film is apparently based on a novel, there is absolutely nothing novel or clever about it. The story follows former FBI secretary / struggling single mother Erin Grant and her mission to get custody of her 7-year-old daughter, Angela. Thanks to Erin's scumbag junkie ex-husband, she loses her job and must resort to exotic dancing to make ends meet, or at least that's what is explained to us in one of the worst opening exposition scenes in the history of cinema. Erin's custody battle becomes even more complicated when she gets tangled up with hypocrite Congressman David Dilbeck, played by a weirdly mustacheless Burt Reynolds.
$5,000 I expect to get laid. It's only human.
Davey, I want you to listen to me.
You know that beautiful lady doesn't understand. She doesn't understand what it's like to make love to the United States Congressman.
I feel like I'm piling on too much negativity at this point, so to change gears, James, are you familiar with Andrew Bergman, the writer and director of Striptease?
I am, actually. I'm very familiar with him.
Okay, we'll talk about it. And I was kind of familiar with him too. But so after I realized that Striptease is pretty much irredeemable, I did a deep dive on the writer-director Andrew Bergman, who also directed The Freshman with Matthew Broderick and It Could Happen to You with Nicolas Cage and Bridget Fonda. I watched both of those as I was doing research for this episode, and you know what? Even though I don't like his writing or directing style, or the projects he picks, or his sense of humor, some part of me admires a filmmaker like Andrew Bergman who can make movies like this. If you've never seen It Could Happen to You, I highly recommend it over Striptease. It's a big, corny, romantic comedy about two everyday people who are drawn together by a winning lottery ticket. Obviously, it's not ambitious or life-changing in any way, but Bergman clearly knows how to tell a story that's aimed at the heart.
Nicolas Cage.
It's like we're on two different channels now. I'm CNN, she's the Home Shopping Network.
Bridget Fonda.
It's like a fairy tale.
Rosie Perez.
Woman with the heart of gold.
It could happen to you.
All right, back to Striptease. Did I mention Ving Rhames is in this? What else? In the mid-1990s, Demi Moore was one of the most in-demand actors in Hollywood, and in 1995, she became the world's highest-paid actress when the producers of Striptease and G.I. Jane started a bidding war over her next project. So, if there's one positive thing that came out of this movie, it's the attention it brought to how much female actresses earn compared to their male equivalents. In March of 1995, Entertainment Weekly pointed out how Demi Moore and her record-breaking payday affected the rest of Hollywood. Call it a reverse domino effect. The day Demi Moore got $12.5 million to play a stripper fighting for custody of her daughter in Castle Rock's Striptease, Sharon Stone asking price jumped from $6 million to $7 million, Jodie Foster went from $7 million to $8 million, Meg Ryan moved from $6 million to $8 million, and Julia Roberts leaped from $12 million to $13 million. It's great, says Stone's manager Chuck Binder. It's forcing every woman's salary up. Further down in the article, journalist Ann Thompson mentions the upcoming production of Striptease and even hints that Jack Nicholson was at one point going to be in it, probably in the Burt Reynolds role. So good job, Jack. You dodged this boring yet offensive disaster of a movie. I usually take so much pride in researching and writing these introductions, but giving thoughtful context to this gross excuse of a movie feels wrong. I feel like I've handed over my maps of the desert to the invading Axis powers, and now I'm caught between my love of movies and my obligation to talk about Striptease. Who am I? What do I stand for? Just like Ray Fiennes at the end of The English Patient, I am full of shameful regret and have had enough.
All right, here you go, Kris. Here's your morphine. The pain, take the pain away.
Free Willy back yet?
So I don't know. What's your take on Striptease?
I want to be very, very careful because this is not a recommendation for the film.
What? Oh, God, what?
I do not think this movie's that bad, though. It is not good. It is ineptly told.
What the hell?
Like, here's the thing. And granted, I was watching it after my daughter kept us up last night, so I was a little sleep deprived when I was watching it. But it just reminded me of it reminded me of Andrew Bergman movies. You mentioned two of his later works. He's probably more famous, though, for he's one of the writers of Blazing Saddles, the Mel Brooks movie. The movie that I love that he wrote but did not direct is The In-Laws with Peter Falk and Alan Arkin. So that is a movie that everyone knows Serpentine from. That's like a B-level joke in the movie. And let's come back to The In-Laws, because I think the way that his story is structured there could have really helped here. So it reminded me of Andrew Bergman movies, but it also reminded me of like Blake Edwards movies. You know, like not the Pink Panther ones, obviously, but the other like sex comedies that he made. And like it felt like in the 70s and 80s, occasionally you would get one of these movies that was like sort of sophisticated, sort of edgy, but like also had some TNA in it as well.
So to reiterate what I said before, what the hell? This movie is terrible. Like it is so bland and awful.
It is bland. It is weirdly bland for a movie that is about stripping.
Gosh, I hated all of it. I hated the dialogue. Everything that came out of Burt Reynolds' mouth was just like the worst thing I've ever heard.
So hold on, let's talk about the source material a little bit, because you kind of skated past that. So this is based on a book by the author, what is his name? Carl Hiaasen. I know him mainly because he is the author of the books that Vince Vaughn's show on Apple, Bad Monkey, is based on. So he kind of trades in Florida weirdness. And I haven't read the original book of Striptease. I haven't read any of this guy's books, but I occasionally like Florida weirdness as a movie. I think I've mentioned, I don't remember if Wild Things takes place in Florida, but that's another, lurid sex noir thing that I really do enjoy. The Florida weirdness was sort of helpful here. I think it kind of gave some context to something that was otherwise ridiculous and pretty, was executed with all the subtlety of of Ving Rhames entering a video store with a power drill and shaking down a sleazy lawyer. That much subtlety.
Gee whiz. I don't know.
Gee whiz. Oh boy, maybe you shouldn't watch R-rated movies, Chris. These are movies for adults.
You know what's funny is like, if you were to just like look at the two posters of Striptease and The English Patient and ask like a stranger, like, which movie do you think is the one that wants to be like sensual and a little sexy? People would probably be like, oh, Striptease, when in reality, it is disgusting. It's gross. Everything about it is just like repulsive. Robert Patrick's character just was repulsive and terrible. Not funny.
Well, let's talk about the execution of it, because apparently you are at a loss for words to how to even discuss this work. Okay, this is a movie made by a writer and a director who I think is quite talented. This is not a good movie, but I see what he was going for here, and based on my little bit of research that I did before this, he even admits that the tone was impossible for him to capture. Because is this supposed to be funny? Is this supposed to be a mystery? Is this supposed to be a satire? Like, it kind of goes in either direction, at any given time, and never really commits to one. So there's no unity of tone or content, and this movie really feels that way, because every single scene pretty much tells you exactly what happened in the last scene. You talked about the horrible exposition at the beginning. I mean, that's only the first time you hear that she's a former FBI secretary who has to strip to get money to hopefully win her daughter back, played by Demi Moore and Bruce Willis's real life daughter, Rumor Willis.
Right.
Matt, there is a Harvey Weinstein recut of this movie that I think is much better. That like takes out so much of the like just people repeating stuff that we already know. Like we're like an hour and 15 minutes into this 2-hour movie by the time that Demi Moore and Burt Reynolds finally meet, and we know everything about each character. There are no surprises that can be found in that conversation between these two characters. And that is a flaw of the screenwriting. And I mentioned the in-laws earlier. Here's what I want to say. The in-laws sets up the premise so cleanly and clearly and so early in the movie that the rest of the movie is just playing out surprising situation after surprising situation. In that movie, Alan Arkin is a normal guy whose daughter is getting married to the son of Peter Falk, who we think may or may not be a CIA agent. It's unclear. But Alan Arkin gets wrapped up in this crazy story because of Peter Falk, and he may or may not actually be the guy who he says he is. And that kicks off so early in that movie that the rest of the movie is just playing that out and playing with, is he a CIA agent? Is he not? And it's so funny, and it's so effortlessly done that it's kind of surprising to see this movie just sort of beat its wings, and like never take off.
It's terrible. Gosh, it's so... I'm going to put in a little bit of audio from that first exposition scene in the courtroom here.
Your Honor, my ex-husband is addicted to pills, and he's a thief. Because of his arrest record, I just lost my job as a secretary for the FBI.
I think it's necessary for the audience to know just how badly written this movie is, because everyone alludes to Demi Moore being a former FBI secretary and like that was her big life and she used to be this normal person, but you never ever see it.
Right.
It's like, how does this character exist already working at the strip club, but she's like, this is not normal, this is not my life, but you never see her outside of this crazy life that she ended up in, and you never see her in like some phase with Robert Patrick where it's like, oh yeah, I could see how they could possibly get married. No, it's just like they took Demi Moore and just like stuck her in this movie and like put her in a character that she never really was. Like she's always like, how am I in this situation? Why am I working at the Eager Beaver? Why is my ex? It's like, I don't know, probably because it was badly written and you were just like stuck at they want Demi Moore to be like nice, charming, not a bad person, edges sanded off. She has a daughter, but how did she end up in this world? It's like, it's totally at odds. It doesn't make any sense.
It's something that could have been an actual central mystery in the movie if Bergman had written this movie better. I mean, just to play it out here, this is an obvious, not fix, but way to approach this. The main character of this movie shouldn't be Demi Moore. It should be like Armand Asante's character, the Florida police chief who gets dragged into the movie when a body washes up in the river, and he, and learns about this whole thing. That's a more traditional mystery, but then it's like, okay, so he's following the clues. He ends up at the Eager Beaver, the horribly named strip club, but I was tickled by it. And he meets Demi Moore and is trying to figure out what's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this. Like, that's a more traditional and like has some tension and like, is building an actual mystery to what's going on. But this movie isn't actually interested in mystery, even though it kind of has those elements built into it.
You know what this movie needs is a giant metal spider and the third act to come in and, have you ever seen Judge Dredd, the 90s movie? Not the new one.
Yeah, the Stallone one. Yeah.
Do you remember Armand Asante in that movie?
Who does he play?
In Judge Dredd, the villain, the bad guy, is a former judge who, do you remember that? He has like the DNA that works on the judge guns.
Right.
And eventually he gets that giant robot, and then he, sets up this whole plot to take over the judge police department.
Right.
He has a great line in that movie where, someone shouts at him like, what about the law? And he says, the law! I love Armand Asante.
He's always good. I remember not hating the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd. I like that one too.
Oh, I love it. It's great.
Okay, good. So then you should like Striptease. I don't. This is not a good movie. It's gross. I don't know. It's just sort of there's some warmth about it that like I don't hate it. Don't you think this movie's a lot like The Birdcage?
No, not at all. The Birdcage brings me joy and laughter, and I love it. It's full of great quotable moments in Nathan Lane. You know what this has? Can I get really nitpicky for a second? And when I was like fully like turning on the side of hatred for this movie, do you remember the running joke thread of all the exotic dancers playing board games with Demi Moore's daughter?
Yes.
So every time it's in a wide shot, they're playing Candyland. Every time it goes in for a close-up, it's just a royalty-free, like, alphabet game. And it drove me nuts because, like, you can clearly see it's Candyland. And I'm watching this on a pretty small screen, not a full movie theater screen. And it's clearly Candyland switching to some royalty-free nothing game.
Oh, you didn't watch the Andrew Bergman Criterion re-release where he digitally fixed that? I mean, that's, an important part of the production. He was really frustrated that he couldn't get Candyland for the close-ups.
Well, it's like George Lucas and the Condom and Howard the Duck.
Yes.
Sometimes it takes 20 years and 14 cuts to get it right.
Hold on, but, engage me about my Birdcage comparison. Come on, take my rage bait. Do it.
There's nothing... The Birdcage... okay, just on a universal scale, The Birdcage is like about a love and acceptance and family. This movie is like misogynist and terrible and like filled me with so many awful feelings of the bad stuff in the 90s. Like, men saying the B word all the time and just, just like how people treat people in certain jobs and positions. It just, nothing about it appealed to me. The Birdcage is such a charming, wonderful movie. This is the opposite of that.
Yeah, I find as much charm in The Birdcage as I do in this movie, to be honest. Now, the main thing that I was reminded of with The Birdcage was that the Gene Hackman character, he's a politician, right? And that the scandal that's going on in his life is threatening to throw off this meeting with between the families. He's going to meet Nathan Lane and Robin Williams. The Burt Reynolds character, there is a version of this movie where that character is less ridiculous, less disgusting, and a little bit more like the Gene Hackman character, and is actually played in a way where the relationship that eventually happens between him and Demi Moore is more interesting and not as one note. Obviously, Gene Hackman's not the antagonist of The Birdcage, but he kind of is until the very end. So, I don't know. And also the Florida setting. I was just sort of reminded of that. And I don't know. I could see Mike Nichols doing Striptease. I think him and Elaine May, they could have had some fun with this. I think all the elements are there. I just don't think they were executed well here.
So what did you like better, Showgirls or Striptease?
I was thinking about that. I mean, both are bad. There is slight... you know what? I think I like Striptease more, mainly because there is just the Demi Moore character. I liked her story. I wanted her to get reunited with her daughter. I don't know. They're just both bad movies. I guess Showgirls has a little bit more scale and spectacle and is at least more confident in its storytelling. But also Showgirls is like really boring. Like it's really boring when it's not being interesting. And this, I wouldn't say it's boring. I mean, I did not know what Ving Rhames was going to do at any given time.
I love that one moment with Ving Rhames. I thought that was hysterical. That was great.
It's good. He's got good comedic timing, and like when he takes Demi Moore to Burt Reynolds, like both there, and he's standing outside with the guards, and they ask ask him, anyone,
do you hire them?
Do you hire them? And anyone famous? You hire anyone famous? And he says Meryl Streep.
Yep.
It's good. I mean, it's a one-note performance, but it's very entertaining.
Yeah. Look, I'm sorry about all the negative things I said.
No, you deserve that. He needs to take his licks for this because he did not do his job here.
I wrote a couple drafts of the intro, and one of the early drafts I had was a lot kinder because I think what I did was I watched Striptease, I started writing the intro, and then I watched The English Patient. And after I saw The English Patient, I just realized, like, gosh, Striptease is like really terrible. Like I realized what a good movie is. So my first draft intro was all about how like in the 90s and even today, not every movie has to be life-changing. Some people just want to get out and see like a fun escapist movie. And in the 90s, fun escapist movies were a little bit smaller in budget. It wasn't like Avatar all the time because the video rental market was so strong and VHS market was so strong that you could make a small movie and it would still make its money back on the other end in video rentals. So there were tons of movies like this in the 90s. I guess like the equivalent of this today, not in style or tone, but sort of in, economy and just how they're put out is Hallmark movies. It kind of feels like a movie for mom and dad to go out and have some chuckles, see some skin, go back home. It's not life-changing. It's certainly not The English Patient, but you do have to give, look, Andrew Bergman, It Could Happen to You is a really sweet, charming movie. It is very, corny and super, almost too sweet, but I really like It Could Happen to You. It's very charming. Nicolas Cage is great. It's a little overwritten, and I noticed that in Striptease too. Like some of the characters are just like cartoon characters, and it's like really
some of them, all of them.
Yeah, you're right. All of them are cartoon characters, but you're right. I wish they had leaned to the Florida weirdness more. Just anything to give this movie. It feels like a Wonder Bread sandwich, like Wonder Bread and like marshmallow fluff.
It's weird because it is supposed to be edgy and salacious by the fact that it's practically a musical. There's just like the movie stops to allow Demi Moore to do the routines, and just praise for the athleticism of those. They're pretty impressive in under that regard. But yet despite all the nudity, all the violence, all the just rough stuff about it, it just does feel like kind of Wonder Bread. It does not feel nearly as R-rated as it should. Where in Showgirls, at the very least, they were like, we're going to give you an X-rated movie. That tone matches the filmmaking for sure.
James, can you name one commonality between Showgirls and Striptease? It's an actress, and I mentioned it in my intro. Did you catch it?
Yeah. Is it one of the Showgirls? Is she an employee of the Eager Beaver?
Rena Riffle. So she was in Showgirls, and then there was a sequel to Showgirls called Showgirls 2 Pennies from Heaven. PENNY''S, as in Penny is from heaven. Yeah, I guess she made a career, being a exotic dancer on film. And also, what is with strip clubs or exotic dancers and monkeys? Like, as soon as the monkey showed up, if Showgirls had come out the year before and Andrew Bergman had seen this, wouldn't you think he would be like, let's get rid of the monkey? That's too much like Showgirls.
Well, it's interesting, or maybe not interesting, and this is just something random that I know. I heard, I think, a Fresh Air interview with the author, the author of the book Striptease is based on, and he, I believe, ordered a monkey once from like a Florida catalog. So I think monkeys are just sort of a thing in the Florida weirdness world. So it makes a little bit more sense in this movie than it does in Showgirls.
Okay, well, I guess I'll give the monkey a pass. But
I didn't mind the monkey. Again, this movie's terrible. This movie's bad. I don't know. I wasn't hit in the gut the way that I was watching Showgirls for the first time. But maybe that's just because I'm a different guy now. I'm a different man after 15 episodes of this, and I finally know who I am. I am the English Patient.
Free Willy back yet?
That wraps up our discussion on The English Patient and Striptease.
If you like what you've heard, please give us a follow and a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Or if you'd like to tell us how right or wrong we are about any opinion we've shared, email us at majormotionproblems@gmail.com.
Striptease Nation Unite.
No.
Oh, yeah, we don't want those people.
No, God, anyone who liked the movie Striptease, I don't want to be around them. Like, if anyone comes up to me and says, hey, have you seen this really funny movie called Striptease? I would just start running in the other direction. I would think there's like something deeply wrong with you.
We end every episode of Major Motion Problems by randomly selecting our next set of best worst pictures. Kris and I, cutting edge, ChatGPT, pick a year between 1980 and the present. Okay, so it picked 2015. How's 2015 sound for you? We haven't done anything between 2010 and 2020. Feels like we should we should get into that.
As long as it's not Striptease 2 or related to exotic dancers, I'm fine with it.
Okay, all right, good. Okay. In 2015, at the 88th Academy Awards, Best Picture went to Spotlight.
Barely remember it.
Yeah, Tom McCarthy directed, I guess. I don't know. All right, anyway, we'll get into that. At the 36th Razzies, Worst Picture went to, oh, how timely, Fantastic Four.
Oh, wow. That is,
So that'll be
interesting.
fun. Who was the attempt at the relaunch Fantastic Four? Is it Miles Teller, Kate Mara, Michael B. Jordan, and I don't remember who the last one is.
The last few lines of that movie have become a meme. Have you ever seen that? Where I think it's The Thing says something like, "It's fantastic," and then Miles Teller like turns his head and said, "Say that again," and then the movie ends. I think that's how it ends.
Whoa, wait! And this one, Worst Picture? I think that's that's best screenplay at the very least.
That's genius writing. And then the audience says, "Fantastic Four!" and their heads explode.
We were still figuring out I know we were like well into like the Marvel dominance time, but we were still figuring it out. Okay, let's assign these movies. Okay, Kris, you get Fantastic Four. James gets Spotlight.
Good, great. As long as there are no exotic dancers or a monkey or Rena Riffle in it.
In Spotlight or Fantastic Four?
In either.
Well, this was, thank God for the English Patient. I think that was good for both of us, and it's good. It's good to see good stuff sometimes.
Man, I'm going to be thinking about the English Patient for weeks, months. I loved it so much.
You should read the book. Maybe we should both read the book. I mean, for a future literary intermission.
Yeah. However, when it comes to Striptease, I'm going to, after we stop recording in a moment, I'm going to go bang my head against the wall until I forget that movie.
I know, Kris. I know. It was so hard for you. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on Major Motion Problems.